So is everybody able to hear us? I hope the sound is clear and the pictures are clear. You can see our faces, bright and smiling. And thank you for joining Payal and Endeavor on this talk show. Great to have you here and to have this discussion going on today. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for taking out time this afternoon and joining this talk show, which is being organized for the first time in this maiden talk show. Uh, it's called as View from the Top Procurement Perspective. And this talk show is an initiative under the Aegis of Procurement Perch, a GACS platform. So everybody might be aware what GACS is an organization. And you hear more about it from Payal as we go around. And as we go around starting this talk show, let me allow me to introduce Payal Kadda, who's there with us, who will be working as a moderator for this. He's gracefully accepted our invitation to host this and moderate this talk show. So let me just introduce Payal to all of you. He's a Livewire anchor, brand ambassador, motivational speaker, life coach, and corporate event host, and a winner of Mrs. India 2019. So that's the accolade that she has and great background she has. And she has been kind enough to spare her time to really moderate this show. So thank you, Payal, for joining us. And I hand over this to you to really take us through creating that interesting talk show in your own imitable style. Over to you, Payal.
Thank you so much, Vikas sir. Well, a very, very good afternoon to each and every one of you who've joined us for this very first talk show of GACS. My friends, before we proceed further, Sir has already introduced me, yet I would just say this is Payal Chadha, your host, because I love to say that. And before we actually start with this talk show, I've been waiting and working on this for a pretty long time. I would just request our audience, our guests who are there with us today, that if there are any questions during the discussions that we would be having in a couple of minutes from now, so you can just do a very simple thing. Just get onto your message board and type your question. And I'm sure that all the questions that would be pouring in, we shall be picking two important questions out of them and try to answer them as well. Because when these talk shows goes on, we start these questions starts popping in our mind that, okay, I have this clarification to be done, and that topic that was discussed, I have something to talk about. So anything that comes in your mind regarding the discussion that we are having today, so please feel free to just type in and put your questions, and we shall try to put forth those answers as well. So all right, my friends, what is this talk show all about? Yet again, a talk show? Is that, what comes in our mind when someone says, okay, there's something coming up, it's a talk show, you must join in? Let me clear that doubt in your mind. Well, my friends, it's a platform created to get procurement professionals across industry to come together and build a fraternity of these professionals where they can share the best practices, knowledge, learning and development, participate in industry forums like CII, etc., and create an ecosystem to support the procurement fraternity, including that of talent sourcing. This platform will be run and managed by procurement professionals and will be their own world to cater to their professional needs. And my friends, is this the only talk show that we are going to be hosting today? And further, what's going to happen? What is the vision of this talk show? I'm curious to know about it because it was one of its kinds that this talk show came up to me, and I wanted to be a part of it to understand more about this industry. So let me tell you that this is the first talk show, yes, but this is not the last talk show. A series of talk shows, videos, and panel discussions are being lined up periodically to get procurement professionals to participate, engage themselves with industry and procurement senior professionals to learn from the past and look at the road ahead. We expect CEOs and CXOs participating in these talk shows regularly, which will help everyone in their growth journey. This talk show is the first of its series, and everyone can look forward to more of such great shows coming in future. So, my friends, when we talk about talk shows, definitely there has to be a guest. I mean, I'm very talkative, but I'm just the moderator today. I won't be talking too much. But we have these two personalities on our talk show. I'm sure you all know them, but yet it's my, honor to welcome them on this talk show. The first and the foremost, Mr. Vikas Lashkari. A huge round of applause for him. Welcome, sir. And I would like to share about you to our guest, an influential and seasoned procurement management professional with 30 years of experience in managing large, complex procurement in IT, consumer goods, automobile, and consulting industry. Let me share something about this gentleman. When I was really searching and trying to understand who he is, I was really surprised to know that he is super skilled person. Let me tell you about his skills. He possesses deep knowledge and skill set on category management, negotiation skills, process management, total cost management, procurement performance improvement, supply relationship management, outsourcing, contracting, and analytical skills. I mean, it just goes on and on. So he's super skilled person, I would say. He worked and headed procurement functions in MNCs like Microsoft, Whirlpool, Goodyear, and Ernst and Young, and established global procurement organizations. He is widely respected procurement leader in the industry with working experience in a highly matrix global multinational corporate environment. Currently, he heads India Practice Procurement Organization, which is the fastest growing region in the EY world. So a very warm welcome to you, Mr. Vikas, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Payal, for your words.
And now let me introduce our next guest, who is Mr. Indiva Rastogi. A very warm welcome to you, sir. A young and dynamic leader in travel industry, is currently heading the India business of Thomas Cook across entities as President Global Travel Services and is a part of senior leadership executive group in Thomas Cook. Endeavor has vast experience of working in leading supply chains, logistic companies, and with leading large travel companies like American Express and Thomas Cook, where he has led the sales, business development, and service delivery functions. He has been instrumental in turning around and scaling business in different market conditions at Thomas Cook. He is, let me tell you, people's man and has passion for leading from the front. And one more thing, he not only likes to lead from the front, but he is an avid golfer, which I had been trying to play, but let's not get into my story. And he has great interest in cars, which I also have, sir. So a very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
And now, as we have both our guests on with us on this platform, so the first thing, Mr. Vikas, sir, I would really want to know to initiate this talk show that we have just passed through a pandemic. We are still there. We've got a very big hit in 2020. So what are your thoughts? How can we sail through it?
Thank you. Thank you, Payal, for such a wonderful introduction and a deep introduction for Endeavor and myself. It's always great to, interact with Endeavor. And in the past, I have been having opportunities to work with him and interact with him in different roles. And it's always great having him as a co-host out here talking on this talk show. So thanks, great question that you asked, Payal. And I think let's just talk about this 2020. Let's begin this discussion. So this pandemic that hit us in 2020 was essentially a harbinger of change. That's what I look at it. When we first learned about it in February and March of last year, 2020, we really saw that this change was a very sudden change and a deep-rooted change, which actually impacted a lot of businesses over there. If I can just say that the impact was so profound and varied with consequences, which was felt not only in 2020, but beyond 2020 as well. And I think that's a fact that we all are grappling to as to when does this, impact of COVID-19 and this pandemic going to be over per se. So, and if I have to probably summarize at how have we been sailing through this phenomenon, so-called COVID-19, I would say that we were all in the same storm,
Right.
probably in different boats, and hence our experience would have been different. Different businesses probably, witnessed this whole pandemic in a different fashion, and they reacted to it in a different fashion. And some of us really felt that as part of that business, how it really hit us. So for some businesses, it was impacting their bottom line. For them, the business was over for some time before it really took shape and started to, recover in a very small and steady fashion. And I think travel industry, where Endeavor is really, working, I think that industry was hit very badly. I think hospitality and travel industry was really, at a state of probably a shutdown due to this COVID-19. So we are seeing that it's improving, but I think it's still not in a shape where it was, and probably will not be in a shape where it was in 2019, the coming years, I would say so. I think what's more important is I think the way businesses have actually collaborated in this and have actually worked around this pandemic, something that we must really, work towards and look towards, and try and see that we are able to reshape businesses to build a resilient future for ourselves. I think that's the goal that we all need to really look at from this. And I would think while some people might have got impacted because of this, to my mind, I think these are phases which teach us, and we learn from experiences how to tread through this journey and tread through those difficult times and come out more stronger. And as the economy talks about, I think we talked about a shrinking economy of India in 2020 and 2021, I would say FY21, which will be around 8.5% negative GDP growth, which is a significant drop in terms of the GDP growth trajectory where India was. And subsequently, I think the growth projections for FY21, looking at 11.5% or 12%, that's what the economists say, are going to be positive. But still, we are still looking at just 2-3% or 4% positive growth around there. In my mind, I think the business will pick up. I think it will rebound. To what extent is something that we need to really understand. How do we build this ecosystem to really see that it gets back to shape and the economy gets back to shape? There are a lot of things, corrections that we need to do, try to understand different factors, what will probably bring this business back to normalcy. And that is something that we'll have to probably look forward to and adapting to these changes which are required to be done during this period. So I think I'll pause here and then probably, turn this over to probably Endeavor to really answer his views on this piece and how did his industry really went through this pandemic phase.
Definitely, we would like to hear from you because travel industry, as you mentioned, has been hit so badly. So Endeavor, sir, what are your thoughts about it?
So thank you firstly for getting me on the show, Vikas. Thank you so much. Thank you, Payal, for an amazing introduction. It's always good to hear yourself. Oh my God, you're like, have you done so much in life that you get an introduction like that? But thank you so much. It kind of motivates you to speak a little bit more. Yeah, I think just adding to what Vikas said, I'm still wondering, 2020 started and it kind of hit us so hard. We've got out of it right now. And I would say we're at the start of the end of the pandemic with this vaccine news and the rollout. So I'm a guy who doesn't look at negative news now. I'm a guy who looks at positive news only. So I'm avoiding I'm blocking myself from all the rumors that are coming on how vaccinations are rolling out and all the effects of it. I'm only looking at the positive news of, that people are getting vaccinated and they're going out and they're ready for the new life that they've got. 2020 has been a very tough year, but I think it's been a year where a lot of people have reimagined their businesses, like what we've also done. We've been very busy in 2020, surprisingly. As much as some of the businesses were operating to a certain extent, but I think what we did is to reimagine our business from all angles, right? We had so much of actionable data that we had collected from customers. Feedback, so whether it's feedback from Vikas or from other customers or from anyone else, user feedback. We had so much of data, but you were unable to plug that in such a detailed way because you never had this pause. So you use this pause to our benefit to say, let's just take a blank sheet of paper. Let's see what we need to do. What are things that are practical? What are things that are just aspirational? And we started to make notes, as simple as that, right? And we got basically user groups, and we created cross-functional teams and made sure everybody had something to do and contribute to. So, we kept ourselves very busy in projects. So I'm not a very internal person. I'm a very external person. So for me, it was even more tougher to be more on conference calls, more internally facing the organization and doing that. But I think it got me more closer to my organization. So all the employees who were working with us never really got the time to interact as much as I did this time. So it was very, very satisfying from that perspective. But yes, I did miss going and physically meeting customers, going to their offices and all of that, and talking to them in reviews and all of that. As much as we did that virtually, but there was no fun doing it virtually, to be very honest. I'm a person who would like to meet the customers face to face, and and we're an organization like that. We're a customer-centric organization. I think every business that is customer-centric, you got to meet people. So there were these things about people saying things are going to go more virtual and they're not going to be so in person. I always used to say it's transitionary. So people are enjoying that moment to say that this is all going to go virtual. I can bet my every dollar that I earn that once the business comes back, people are going to get back to the flight and they're going to start traveling. So I'm an optimist. I also feel 2021 will recover well. I won't say till H1 will be a little slow in terms of its performance, but I think H2 onwards, a lot of people may get vaccinated, may get on the flight. We've already seen that in our numbers already. They are raising by the day. I think it's been a learning. It's how you look at the year. You can look at the year and feel depressed about it. You can look at the year and say, damn, I can do so many more things now in 2021 that I've prepared for it. It's about everybody's perspective. So my perspective, and I'm speaking for my organization, we've been very, very optimistic about saying that this is all it's going to go behind us. It has taught us a lot of things. Absolutely, any incident in life teaches you something. So we've taken it from that perspective of learnings. Wearing a mask, going out. It took me a lot of time to go to the office, actually. It really took my chairman to call me 2-3 times and say, you know what, you need to go back to work. Because there was this fear bubble inside me, which was also restricting me to say, I need to step out. But, once you step out, you just feel it's not that bad, right? You just go back to the office, you meet a few people at social distance, and you get back to work, right? You're doing your meetings, and you're getting back to work. So, I think the year has started, and I think the year will go well. And I hope that everybody on the call today looks that way, because if all of us think the same direction, I think the energies also in this world make a lot of things better. So, that's pretty much my thing of 2020. But, you can do a Control-Alt-Delete, or you can do, I'll take some learnings of 2020. It depends on their own perspective, and I leave it at that.
I so agree with you, sir. That is a fact that 2020, it's not, you can take it as a negative or you can take it as a positive for yourself I'm sure everyone has learned something out of it. And if you take that learning forward in life, there would be success, definitely. So taking that forward, Vikas, I wanted to ask you that you've had a large experience of working in procurement organizations. So what challenges and interests you have in this function?
Great question, Payal. And let me tell you, I think over the years, procurement has been an evolving function. And I've seen it from late 80s onwards, how this procurement function has been evolving in different kind of industries. I've had the opportunity to work in 3 distinct industries, and largely in manufacturing, technology, and consulting. Manufacturing is a different ballgame altogether. I think I've seen this manufacturing organizations having reached the top of their S curve of maturity in terms of procurement evolution, where there's a very clear demarcated role and distinct role for procurement to really play. There you've got the details about the cost, you've got historical cost of your products that you buy, your raw materials you buy, so and so forth. You can take intelligent decision based on that. You know the suppliers, you involve suppliers and supplier base in what you buy, and your pricing, historical pricing, etc., is all available to you to take decisions. So I think, you know, that environment is so different and so evolved. I would say that, you know, it really gives you a pleasure to really work over there. If somebody has to talk about procurement, they look at procurement, don't look here and there. But the other interesting part and the challenging part is there when I got into the technology company like Microsoft and consulting world like EY. Procurement was not there. So I was probably among the first few hires of procurement in both these organizations. And setting up the organization in this area, working with people who are essentially been working, sourcing, procuring all this product themselves was a bit of a challenge. Here, nothing which was mandated. I think that's the biggest challenge that we faced. So you have to prove your ability to source better than what was historically being done. So I think that was the biggest challenge that you had. You had to be an influencer, and there was no mandates coming in from the business saying that here's a person you need to contact for any of your procurement needs. So that created a more and more interesting and a complex environment in which we used to work. And even in today's date, while Microsoft is a corporation, is an organization, you have a very set procurement organization evolved after 12 or 13 years. In EY, we are operating out of 150 countries, so 150 member firms, and there is nothing which is mandated. So, you know, each of the member firms have an ability to really do their own procurement, unless they see a reason, unless they see an influencing factor for them to really go to procurement. They generally don't do that, and I think that's the biggest challenge, which keeps you, innovating and then creating newer solutions and creating more insightful decision making for the business to really get hooked on to procurement services which are being provided over there. I think these are the two key areas I would think which differentiate each other, and also is some bit of a challenge operating in these kind of environment where you are. The other piece is, I think, implementing procurement and footprint in areas like technology and consulting world, which are comparatively new, wherein they have really implemented procurement processes and system. I think the compliances, risk, and so forth, areas, creating a policy have been one of the teats that we have possibly, created to really see that business really gets hooked onto procurement. And over a period of time, I think the competency building within this team to have right people to really provide the solution to the business, I think that has been the other big challenge and important aspect of developing a procurement function out here in these organizations. To my mind, to summarize this, I would think that the flavor of the procurement in a mature procurement organizations like manufacturing slightly different as compared to where you have to establish procurement organization. But the pace of things in both the areas are changing very fast. Transformation is happening very fast. That keeps you creating newer things in terms of delivering faster solution and being swifter in terms of delivering procurement solution to your organization. To my mind, I think that summarizes what keeps me interested in this function.
Thank you so much, Vikas. I so agree with you on that. And it's such a learning from you. I'm learning so much from you. Thank you. Nivasa, travel industry has been since long with us, but I'm more intrigued to know your journey in this travel industry and the key to your success.
So firstly, please call me Indivar Payal. Don't call me Indivar sir. It's just
to me as well, yeah.
Okay.
So you can call Vikas sir. It's fine. No, I'm just. I think I agree with Vikas on his journey because he's a tough procurement professional. He's been meeting me for 11 years. It took him 10 years to give me his business, and that also a portion of it. But I think very interestingly, and just coming back to my side of it, I've been in this travel industry for over 14 years. It was, in fact, I did my master's in supply chain and logistics because our family business was that side. So I thought I will make the freight forwarding into logistics and all of that. So got myself educated on that stream. But when I came back, I got so bored of that line because you were only speaking to boxes. Because in cargo freight forwarding, you're not really speaking to people. And both my parents had come from the travel industry. So, all dinner conversations were around travel. So, it kind of got me a little attracted. And finally, I said, what, doesn't matter. You can always change career, because that time you're always thinking, right? You're always trying to figure out what lane is best for you. So I chose the travel line, and I started my journey with Air France, where I started being a sales executive, going door to door to make sure that people travel that airline, and then moved my way up to American Express and then and Thomas Cook. What I like about this business is it's very interactive. It's very communicative. It's about people's dreams. It's about people, connecting point to point and all of that. It depends on how your passion is aligned with what you're doing. It gets your thought process like that. But having said that, I think what I've found interesting is this business teaches you so many things. It's so complex. Thinking of becoming a travel TMC partner, you can just say you're issuing tickets, but it's much more than that. It's people like Vikas who come and ask you, create benchmarks for me, or tell me if your average ticket price is better than the other. Is it that, are you booking on time? Is your systems enabled? When you're asked so many questions, you need to then look at infrastructure, technology, people you have behind it, all of that. Because one little thing doesn't work, the whole system goes for a toss, right? So it's very important to have your perfect machinery in order to make sure that your system runs well, that you're effectively can service large organizations like like E&Y or Microsoft or any other name that we hear. And I think it's more about consulting. A large portion of expectation that comes from the customer, and I'm talking about procurement in general, is about it. And I'll give this as an example itself. Whenever I used to meet Vikas, he used to always ask me, what is new in the industry, or what are you doing differently? And I always knew that he would have those two questions ready for me every time I would come to his office, right? Sometimes you have not changed, but you're pretty much doing the same thing. Right. But the fact is that he will ask me the same question, right? So in this business, you need to continuously evolve and think about newer things with the same infrastructure sometimes, and keep challenging yourself, right? Now, everybody's booking mobile, we all know it. Everybody's booking domestic online, we all know it. What is that we need to do? So, we've used those pause to unlock a few more things, gain momentum, gain scale. We've been fortunate enough to even do a slight acquisition in this time in 2020, which is Donata's business that we acquired and moved over to Thomas Cook. Those kind of things allowed us to peek into how things were being done there and all of that. But I think what's kept me going is, as a person, is to always say that there's one question I need to answer. And the more questions you keep getting, the more answers you start. And you start solving those problems. And those problems, when they get solved, your organization gets, so foundation of that organization becomes stronger. So for me, it was always about aligning people with what the customer wants. It's about aligning the organization with what technology we've got. Sometimes I feel, we may not be the perfect solution, but we are very, very close to it, right? But we need to always figure out what our customers need and keep scribbling it somewhere. That's what I said when I started, that we had a lot of actionable data that we wanted to play with, which is what we have done in 2020. And I think for any travel person who's on this call, they would understand. Everybody's asking for simple things, but it's just that how you position it, how you package it, and how you passionately deliver it. If your goals are aligned with, if I'm just using Vikas's name again, with his organizational goals, then you've got a perfect journey. And I think every procurement professional takes TMCs as their complete partners, because you join that function to deliver an objective of cost management, or deliver an objective of saying user experience has to go above what it is currently. and deliver on it. So it's an evolving thing, but it's very, very fascinating and very complex, very little margins, which can become better, but you play on scale, right? So companies like ourselves play on diversity, divisional scales, and all of that to make sure that there is good business for everybody.
Thank you. That is a very insightful and very good learning. That's how you've really come together and you're thinking about from the customer's point of view. And the best part, which I could really gather, was that which normally people tend to forget. They're very certain people are very scared of questions. They're not ready to face the questions, and when they come across, they try to run back. Whereas you have been, you've come forth whenever the question has come. That's made you solve it. So that's the way to success. So, keep answering questions, keep solving them, and keep moving forward. So amazing. Thank you so much, Endeavor. Vikas, I wanted to ask you that the scale and the breadth of procurement done at EY World and the challenges that they face. Please share something on these lines with us.
Thank you. So as most of us would know, that EY is among the top 4 consulting firm globally, firmed as Big Four. I think we claim to be, among the number 1 and 2 of Big Four organizations across the globe. Globally, EY is a $37 billion worth of an organization. The revenues is plus minus some there, but I think that's the size of a firm which is there. You've got around 700 plus offices located in 150 plus countries, and our current headcount is approx 300,000 people. So that's the behemoth of our organization. So the size of this organization is humongous. When you have to run a business of this size, spend becomes so significant that you would have to have a good lens to really look at it right perspective. This professional services, the services firms operates largely under 4 service lines. So just explaining how this business actually runs. So what are the basic business of our businesses? I think we have tax as one of the service line, assurance, which is essentially linked around audits and the related works that we do. And we have business consulting, and then TAS, that is transaction advisory services, which now has been recrystallized as strategy and transaction. So largely these 4 pillars on which our business hinges. So that's our primary business, what we go to the market for. And to support this complex and niche business, we have a global procurement organization supporting different categories of spend. So if you look at the consulting world or a professional services world, you would have largely the spend falling under 4 or 5 basic categories under which the spend management really happens. Of this 37 odd billion dollars, we have a addressable spend of around $7.5 billion, which is in scope for procurement guys to really look at and deliver value to the firm. And that's a critical part. So if you look at what are the basic categories under which the spend goes, the largest category is the travel spend. And I think that's what keeps us busy and focusing in terms of travel. What's the latest over there? What is the cost over there? How is our compete doing there? And so on and so forth. So I think, that's the piece that I generally connect with Endeavor to really understand what's happening. How is he keeping us ahead of the curve? And how is he keeping us ahead of the compete? I think that's what this business is about. I think travel is one of the big things. The travel, within the travel, it comes the kind of spend that we spend huge amount of money is air travel. You've got hotel and lodging, and then you've got ground logistics and forex. So I think these are the kind of subset of this category within which huge amount of spend to the tune of around $2.5 billion globally is being done at EY. Other than that, we have real estate, which talks about the offices, the workplace services, and the common area maintenance of these offices, etc. The spend which is there. This is the second largest category which is there. So that's the other piece that we manage pretty effectively over there. The third category is the technologies. In technology, we buy whole set of hardware, software, and the professional services related to technology. So that's another significant spend where we have a large amount of people managing the spend to deliver value to the firm. And the fourth largest piece is the talent. So talent largely hinged around the people that EY has. We've got around 300,000 people operating at EY, and there are a large number of suppliers, large number of professional services, provider services go to our clients for the various needs which are there. So within this talent, you've got learning and development, you've got recruitment, you've got insurances, you've got other kind of professional services that we hire within this talent category. And then of course, the smaller category is business marketing and communication, which is the other spend category which we look at. So if you look at it, these are quite a variety of services or goods that we buy within these categories, which requires very different kind of a skill set, really provide that value add to the organization. And one thing which is pretty challenging, and I would think this is very specific about EY. EY, being in the consulting world, you would have partners who would essentially know in and out of every business. So they would probably be like the most expert person who can give you solutions around what to source, how to source, where to source. They would be connected. So for instance, Thomas Cook is one of the companies, and we are providing services to them. So we have a very direct connect with Thomas Cook as an organization. We know in and out of that organization, and we know how to source. So I think that's the challenge within which we have to operate. We have got a procurement which delivers value to the business, and within business there sits people who are knowledgeable in that trade or in that area, like masters, so done masters in that area. So I think that's the piece. So you once you establish this organization as an influencer, you establish yourself that you can deliver value at the minimum to the extent that a partner or a person who's probably very well entrenched with that specific business, then you've really made a mark out there. So I think that's the piece which keeps I keep talking to my team to really gather that kind of a momentum or knowledge, really go and sit across that partner and talk about that industry in a fashion which actually matches his skill set and his knowledge. So I think that these are the kind of challenges that we have. Second is, of course, influencing each of the decision making which is being done in a member firm by giving that insight and the knowledge within that specific category. So if I have to go to partner group and say that I need to buy this services from, let's say, Thomas Cook or SOTC for my hotel, there'll be hundreds of questions they will ask. Are we taking the right steps over there? And if I'm short in terms of their knowledge or my ability to answer those questions, it'll be very difficult for us to convince the organization to go the direction the procurement wants. I think these are the challenges which I feel are important for us to really, work around in this organization. And also, that also talks about the breadth of what all we buy across the member firm in these 150 plus countries across the world.
Great. It's like talking about numbers, and I was just thinking, all right. Indiva, as Vikas was telling us about the travel industry and how important it is with the procurement as well. So how do you feel cost management is important in travel industry? And do you also think procurement organization can help a defining role in business?
Okay, so yeah, I think absolutely. I think cost. See, from our perspective, why would anybody choose a Thomas Cook over an ABC agency or a CDE agency? Is purely because we are able to look at cost differently, and we are able to manage cost differently from a perspective of how do we book travel, how do we look at cost per trip. Now, if I unbundle all the categories of service, whether it's air, whether it's hotel, whether it's insurance, whether it's foreign exchange, there's a cost element to each service, right? And some customers try to buy saying that we will use a one-stop shop mechanism, which basically we will procure all services together. And for any journey that happens, say from Delhi to Bombay or Delhi to Bangalore, we will look at an absolute cost for that journey. So the big question comes here is, do managers get to know that a trip to Bombay or a trip to Bangalore or a trip to Chennai would cost them X? But most decisions, unfortunately, sometimes are just taken on at the first level of saying, what is the air ticket price of the ticket? And then you're able to say, okay, business demands him to travel, but does the business really demand him to travel to cover such a large cost? I think what's happened over time is technology has enabled so much of visibility to individual procurement organizations, where they are able to look at the entire set of costs. They're able to benchmark the entire set of costs with their peers as well, to see, are they booking the right ticket price? Are they booking the right hotel? Are they booking the hotel which is closer to their work location, so that they don't need to incur more journey costs through road transport? So all of that. So we are expected as TMCs to deliver an absolute solution to them, to say, we are going to get you all pieces joined together. Sometimes some organizations say, that they can do this really well because they've mastered it. It could be road transport, it could be hotel transport. So they say, we will only bundle with one agency over air and hotel. So I think from a procurement standpoint, they have all their data available. They know their behaviors of their organization. They know their nature of their organization. They know their type of the work culture that they have. For example, consulting. A lot of that could be last minute travel. A lot of that could be demand-based travel basis a client meeting. How do you make sure that when you effectively book travel, whether it's billable or non-billable, doesn't matter. Every time a product is bought, every time a service is bought, it's bought at the right price. And for them, I think procurement plays a large role in defining the governance process on how things will be bought. So when we go through a proper bid process with companies like E&Y or any other company, there's a lot of impetus on the technical side of things. What is your experience? What is your story about savings that you've done for clients? And you cannot just come up with anything. You need to put up real case studies to kind of share your thoughts and how you've delivered certain areas. But cost is a very important element. You just can't say we are choosing an agency because they look good or their colors look nice. You choose an agency basis their ability to change and create impact. So any change of a large contract like a travel contract, generally, from a standpoint of procurement, and I'm just speaking for procurement as a position statement right now, he has to look at, and I'm just using Vikas as an example, he has to look at whether the new contract will deliver more savings for him. Will the new contract bring better user experience, so that, when travelers travel, they should feel that, okay, you've gotten your agency, they're doing this a little better. So that nod is also important. The third thing is, it's such an emotional product that everyone gets involved. If somebody travel gets slightly messed up, it escalates within the system like a house on fire, right? So you need to make sure that the top people are serviced well. You need to make sure that there is absolute differentiation that comes with the contract. You need to make sure that the cost is better. You need to make sure that you feel comfortable with an agency that understands cost and understands governance of cost management, right? And just doesn't book travel because they've been allowed to, because those bills have to get presented inside. There is pre-travel data and there's post-travel data, right? And there's so much data available. So a scorecard for any agency can be built so quickly, and veterans like Vikas and everybody else are able to judge whether we're doing a good job or not. So whether we tell ourselves whether we've done a good job, they already know whether we've done a good job. Now, you always have that little period of saying acclimatization or a little bit of changeover time where you do see understanding and say that understanding is a little bit of more cost. But when the curve matures up, you kind of get back to the savings curve, right? Having said that, I think the market has become tougher. Why? Because I think people have become more educated. Talk shows like this that Vikas and yourself are organizing are creating newer ideas to people. Some of them already know it. Some of them are making notes. Some of them are getting started. So everyone today is asking similar questions. It depends on that individual and that organization then to say, how do they roll out governance on a process that they procure? Now, procurement can pick up the right organization, right process, but then that same handshake has to happen where the operating organization has to make sure that what they've bought gets delivered. And I've seen large organizations like the names that I've heard, they hold for at least 2 quarters or 3 quarters to make sure this is what we bought, this is what is getting delivered, my sign off is done. Call me in if you're in problem, otherwise I go to my next category of purchase, right? Because obviously you cannot just keep focusing on one category, just like what Vikas mentioned of the various categories he has, and there's so many variable elements to it. Some are very ad hoc, some are very planned. So it really depends. But I think I've interacted with great procurement professionals who have been very, very strong with what they need, and clearly so they've delivered. They've really asked and said, "This is my KPI scorecard. This is what we need. This is how we want you to deliver it. If you're ready for it, present it this way," right? And there are no questions asked. We'll pay you for the service that you're asking. We'll pay you for the service, but we need you to deliver X, right? And some of them even want to go beyond the line and say, listen, we are ready to even change behaviors in our organization, provided you're able to put the platform in the right order that we want you to. So I see a lot of procurement people, and I'm just using Vikas as a name, who want to put the skin in the game and saying, listen, if I'm getting the contract changed, I'm also going to make sure that you deliver.
Right.
So they take ownership for companies like ourselves before they procure, and they put that on the platform. But you know what? Cost is a very, very important element in the whole procurement, and that has to get first aligned with the story of getting change, and that impact is huge. So that's my 2 cents on this.
It really makes sense, and absolutely I agree with you that cost really makes a lot of difference. But I'm really surprised, or rather I should say that a small decision, like but just about getting the contract, or even making sure that the customer is happy and the clients are happy, there is so much into it, so much that you have to think at your back end and make sure that the deliverables are given as per said. So it's a huge thing to think of and to walk forward with. So, well, people like us may not think on those lines as the task that you take of taking it so thorough, and getting as the procurement organizations being with you and moving it forward. It's really amazing and a learning for me as well. But Indiva, I wanted to understand that as we were talking about travel, so the corporate travel has been hit very badly in this pandemic. How do you think this will revive challenges ahead?
So yeah, you know what? I always thought, and when we used to be in our meeting rooms and we used to be in those virtual sessions, I always thought leisure will start later than corporate travel, but actually leisure started first.
Yes.
A lot of people are now going to go, and a lot of people are going to Maldives and Dubai. Every damn actor's in Maldives right now, right?
Yeah.
I think there's so much of pent-up demand. I think first need of the hour is to make sure that people get out of their houses and start traveling a little bit. And I do see that leisure travel will start a little earlier. We've already seen great demand, great forward bookings for leisure travel already. People are planning for next year. People are planning for this year. People are planning weddings. Destination weddings are now again started to come on the table. I always thought that group meetings, large get-togethers are all going to get delayed. Movie rollouts, all these movies that were on hold, now the crews started to move. So there is a lot of movement that I've already seen. I was just reading this article today that domestic flights have already reached 60% of pre-COVID, and the government has allowed 80% of the total fleet to operate. International will also start, I think, in time. And from everyone I hear, and I'm not saying that is a general framework, but a lot of people who have come on flights have said the flight was full. And I would still wonder, I was like, who is traveling in these times, right? But there's so much of population that needs to travel. There's so many visiting friends and families anyway there. There are bubble arrangements that are there with so many countries. So there is a lot of pent-up demand. So I think the first bubble is going to burst is all leisure travel. People are going to get their families out, take a quick vacation, get back and say, you know what, we are safe. Now let me get back and get my business on the road. And to be honest, as a travel professional myself, I'm really dreaming my first vacation now. Feels I've never taken a vacation for so long, right? So Yeah. So I'm really, Payal, and I'm sure you are thinking the same. But
Yes.
I'm really thinking on taking a first leisure trip and then starting corporate travel, right? And because I need to go and visit my cities and my people and all of that. But I think the wheel's going to start moving very quickly. We've had a very damaging revenue year, and I won't hide that from anyone. We've operated in zero revenue days right now, with costs being the same. But we've obviously made sure that whatever we are doing now will pay us later. So we had to get our people trained, we had to get ourselves trained, we had to make sure that our shops are and our organizations are re-engineered, reimagined in many ways, and cross-functionally, right? Not just not business in silos. So I think corporate travel will start. It may not be at the same speed, but I'll tell you, people forget incidents very quickly. People forget all these things when they see competition. If an FMCG guy sees competition traveling for some reason, for some rollouts, the others will follow. People may say that we're going to go slow on travel, but I'll tell you, when the vaccine rolls out and when the herd immunity really kicks in, which actually has already started to see, you will basically see people on the streets. You go to a market, you will not realize that there is any COVID out there, right?
Actually.
And a lot of these things will just automatically, people will see each other and start gaining momentum. SME traders and SME companies have already started moving out because they need to get their business back on road. They need to feed their families. They need to do all of that. Large corporates, I would let Vikas answer that question. And maybe, we can take feedback from the people on the session. I think there will be a time when people say, let's get back to work. The first step will be get back to you. Let's open our offices. The second step would be, urgent travel, let's start approving it. The third step would be, heck with it. This disease is behind us now. Let's all travel. If we have to travel, we have to travel. Let's go bag orders. So all sales-oriented organizations will start traveling, will start doing, and people are just going to, a lot of people have reached that saturation point and they don't really give a damn anymore, right? Sorry for using the slang, but
I agree with you on that.
so things will come back. I'm pretty much, like I said, I'm an optimist. So I'll keep smiling and start waiting for the business to come back. Yeah.
I like that. It seems like it. Okay. Well, you anyways, you have a beautiful smile, so you should always keep smiling and never.
Thank you. So my job is done already. So I've got my compliment for the day, and now Vikas can take all the rest of the questions now.
All right, Vikas. Well, I would want to know from you, and rather, in fact, our guests who've joined in also, they're quite young professionals that we have on board with us. So, for young professionals, what do you think are the key attributes they should develop for a successful career in procurement?
Vikas, your phone you're on mute.
Thank you for letting me know, Endeavor. Yeah, and great question, Payal. I think this is a question that has been posed multiple times, and this is something that always good to know as to what attributes really can propel your career in this area of procurement. So as I always said, and I always maintain that procurement is not an operational role. And people who think that you've got to probably have a requisition coming in at one end, and you've got to create of order and give it to the vendor and do all the related paperwork. That is not procurement. That's not what procurement resources are meant for. I think some of the attributes which come to my mind actually excite me when I talk to a person and when I interact with procurement professionals or budding professionals who want to come to a job in procurement are areas which are different than pure operations. So, for example, some of the discussion I'd like to do with a person who want to probably join a procurement organization at EY would be, what does he think about sustainability? What are his views on diversity and inclusiveness? These are the areas which makes an organization socially responsible these days. And I think this comes to me as a first point of discussion, wherein we can have an animated discussion with the person to really understand what does he think about it. So it's not about creating a PO, it's about selecting a supplier, it's about understanding the ecosystem of this supply base and understanding what we can do socially responsible while doing buying. I think that's something that I would look forward to. Second is integrity. I would think should have a rock solid integrity if you have to build a career in procurement. So I think that's something which cannot be compromised, and that is something that you should pass through all kind of tests on each day that you are there in your work. So I think that's the other piece that one needs to be very sure of. And third is, of course, some of the basic attributes that a procurement personnel should have is about his knowledge and insight in the job that he does. The buying that he does, he's the one who has been given the dollars to spend. So it is at least expected that he should have knowledge and insight into that area more than everybody else who's doing that work. So I think that's the third piece that I would look forward to as an attribute in a buyer. So the buyer should essentially be knowledgeable, insightful, and be able to take the right decision for the dollars that have been given him first. And besides this, of course, there are some of these software aspects which are related to communication. You have to have a very good written and communication, because your role as an influencer in certain organizations, you need to interact with very senior people, not only internally but externally. So your written and verbal communication come in very handy if you are you are a good communicator, and written and verbal skills are above average. And last but not the least, I think you have to have an analytical mind in this area. And when I say analytical minded, when you enter an organization, you should know the business of the business. You should know where every dollar of that organization is being spent on, which are the large bucket areas that you need to focus on. How do you manage the tail end spend, and so on and so forth. So unless you are analytical in mind, unless you have those abilities to really, drive those kind of decision making to a proper analysis, you will always find something lacking in this whole thing. So if I would probably want to summarize this, integrity, responsiveness, which is the other piece which I probably would like to highlight. Integrity, responsiveness, high analytic skills, great communicator, knowledgeable and insightful, and banking on sustainability, diversity, and inclusiveness. These are the things which I would look at as a good attribute for a great professional. If you have all of them, you're a great CPO material. I must just say that. And I think if you have ability and want to build up a career in procurement, I would think these are the areas which you should focus on. We missed. We are not able to see Payal. We lose out.
Hi. So apparently she just called and she has some technical and electrical problem at her side. She's trying to rectify and come online. So just to continue this,
Yeah.
Nitesh, I'll take the next question. Indivar, this is for you.
Shoot.
So during this pandemic, many of the travel professionals lost their job. We all know that. And what do you think could be a return strategy for all these guys back to the business once we see a full revival happening?
So, I think, business is going to come back for sure. So there's no doubts on that. Roles will come back. Business will be there. India's anyway, the growth is going to be there. So there are going to be enough and more jobs that are going to be there anyway. But it's also for someone to always, and I was speaking to an employee of mine where I tried to have a
I think we have lost Indivar. There's some technical glitch on that.
So carry on, Nitesh. If you have some questions for me,
I know. Apparently, can I ask you one question? There is something. This can be in a continuation of the question which was asked earlier. So, how do you see the future of procurement and the way business would lean on this expertise?
Great question, Nitesh. And I think this is something that all the procurement professionals should really look at. I think procurement will continue to be an influencer in most of the business where they are. We would continue to look at procurement and at a cost level and help the business improve the margins. So I think, improving the margins for focus. And I think that is something that we all need to be prepared for. To do that, as I said, I think analytic skills, understanding the cost of the organization, understanding the business of your business, extremely important for procurement professionals to really look at. And business is going to be leaning on procurement more and more as the external environments change, and external environments bring about more and more complexities in our business. And I think that's something that we all need to be geared up for. The other piece is, I think, from a transformation perspective, future of procurement is going to be extremely different way than the way we've been operating historically. The procurement as an organization or as an operational function, if I may call so. So I mean, where you are, what you do, when you do, will be irrelevant in future. You will have to be thoroughly digital. You will have to be able to operate when you want. You will have to operate the way these stakeholders want, 24/7, delivering them the solution, delivering them what they want on the requirements. So I think that's the future that's going to be coming up. And I think we should all embrace this digital transformation that's happening in this organization. Some of them have already embraced, some of them are slow in doing it. If I look at travel as an example, the way people travel now, no more wherein you have to go to the travel desk and the client will probably ask you, etc. Those days are over. I think you've got online tools, and then people would look at what are the options which are there. You look at your eligibility, you look at your policy. Basis that you do a booking, and then you done with this. So I think you're not dependent on someone actually, doing booking for you. He was placed in your place in your organization doing those work for you. But to my mind, I think things are changing. The environment and the landscape is changing. We should be prepared for bringing in the change and embracing the change. And in our organization, I think you are one of those people who would probably also not be facing that. People are down to the historical change, historical way of operation of operating within travel, which we are trying to bring about a change, which is happening very fast. And I think people have to embrace the change and do and follow through that. So to my mind, I think from a procurement perspective, the future is going to be very, very interesting in terms of the way we are trying to bring about the digital transformation to this function. Also the way people actually manage spend on a day-to-day basis. I'll pause here, and I think we've got Indiva back, so maybe Indiva can continue with an answer. Very last.
Hi, Indiva. Welcome back. I think there was some technical glitch.
Yeah, my iPad went out of
Going
juice.
back to the same question, you can continue on that. That as many travel colleagues, friends of ours, which lost their job, once we come back on a full swing, what is the strategy that you're looking for your future?
So I think one is, and I'm just going to be a little bit broader in my answer this time. One is, I think, like I said, this has been quite a damaging year for the travel companies. I think nobody had the intention of making sure people lose their jobs, but because of the large cost layers and redundancies that were created, I think the fact is that the business is going to bounce back. So look out for opportunities that come by. I think Vikas did mention something which I was hearing. People are now going to look at tools. They're going to look at, and there was a survey done, 39 to 40% people said they need digitized access of booking travel. They need contactless payment solutions, etc., etc. So a lot of things that were being done by us are now going to be done by the system. But does that mean that there are going to be no jobs available? Absolutely not. India is still a very high-touch market, a very relationship-driven market. We need ambassadors. We need relationship people that will be there, who are going to consult, who are going to act as mid people to make sure that they kind of bring things together. Then complex itineraries. We still need that skill. We still need that experience that you've gained for so many years to make sure that you're able to price an itinerary. Now you can say that that is also available, but I can tell you there are so many scenarios that in an offline mechanism that you're able to do that you cannot do in an online mechanism. So there is a lot of skill that is required in that. So the floor is not going to be empty. The floor is going to be full. People are going to increase businesses. People are going to start traveling. E-commerce is going to be on a boom. I have seen so many spaces like the electric vehicle space, the FMCG space, newer organizations coming through. And I was having this conversation with one of my employees. I tried to unlock him from this perspective that I've always been in travel, so I've got to be in travel. But if you've serviced a customer, you've managed complex situations, It's like a procurement professional. You know, travel is just one piece for him. It's not the piece for him, right? Similarly, for a travel agent or for a travel consultant, why does he look at just one industry? Why can't he widen his thought from a customer-centric perspective? Because there are customers everywhere. They're procuring different services, they're using different models, etc., etc. So there is enough and more for everybody out there. It's just that one has to be at the right place at the right time. I always say this. But from a travel perspective, this industry will get back so quickly. As they always say, first in, last out. But when they're in, they will generate so much and employment. You know the employment numbers globally. You know the employment number, whether it's a hotel, whether it's an airline, whether it's TMCs, whether it's travel tour operating companies, whether it's inbound companies. They require a lot of people. People are the true assets. So the doors will be open soon and people are going to see those job posts coming back. So I don't think time is to get disappointed, but I also say widen your horizon on the thought process to enable newer industries as well. But like I said, a lot of people have their passion for travel, and if you have passion for travel, don't go anywhere else. Be very honest, because travel, when you're in that business of joining dreams and making sure they come true, you will not like any other industry. So, and I'm an optimist. Like I said, these things will come back very quickly. Please look out for things to come back. Like I said, leisure travel, MICE, corporate travel will jump back as soon as international hub points open. So there will be a very different new tomorrow, but there will be plenty and plenty of jobs available in the market space. That's my perspective. Nitesh, did you get my?
Thanks, Indivar. No, apparently I think Payal has also joined in, and I'm trying if we can unmute her. Jatin, can you unmute Payal? I think she can lead it from here. Jatin? Okay, so there is some technical glitch. So what I'll do is, out of our listeners, so there are two questions which have come across, and I would like to share it with you. The first question is for you, Indivar, and that has come from one of the listeners. We have picked it from there. Let me ask you. So he has put in a very right question asking you that, Indivar, that you have got 14 years of experience. And with this experience in dealing with procurement teams of various firms across the industry, what is your say towards evolved practice in travel space when dealing with procurement methodology?
Very good question, actually, Samir. And to be very honest, every procurement sometimes looks a little different, but I think the asking questions are the same, right? It's just that they put it differently, and I think they also see how we respond to certain queries, how we respond to certain situations, how we respond to exigencies, how do we respond to duty of care, and there are various subsets, right? Again, like I said, in evolved setups, I think the ask is very clear. Differentiation of what we have done with organizations of that type, and what have we done to ensure that we have managed cost well with them. I think somewhere evolved setups try to see the passion in partnership to say, do you have the right team? And they try to look at those things by various elements. One is a straight procurement question to say, what is the price per ticket? What is the technology that you're going to use? But I think all those questions that are asked, you generally try to get various answers from that. What kind of organization are you? What kind of people are behind this organization? What kind of problem solvers are there in the organization? What kind of difficult situations you've been that you've handled effectively, right? There's market reference and all of that. I think while there's a big paper and a big story around 10, 20 questions that need to be answered really well, but I think the whole exchange, a procurement organization generally judges these 4-5 tenets to see how we are as an organization. Can they be a reliable partner? Can they stand behind us? Can they hold our hands and walk with us? Can they meet our objectives? Do they have the abilities? And I think those things are then checked through the answers that we give through the technical. And I think people who've been in the industry understand what kind of impact we create. I won't say anybody's perfect out there, but it kind of, you have to evolve setups, then see what kind of culture do they have, what kind of culture do we have, can we kind of make that marriage happen, can they ensure that they deliver those goals that we have for themselves. Because please understand, your KPIs which you signed for the year are aligned with our KPIs of deliverance, right? So you have to make sure, it's like you're betting your bucks on the car you buy, that it will give me that mileage, it will give me that speed, it will give me that comfort. But if any of those things don't match your thing, you will drop the decision. So pretty much, I think everybody, I've started seeing, and I think this is a great thing that I've started seeing, and this is, we've participated in a lot of bids in this COVID time as well. People have stopped focusing on what is your transaction fee? I think that's the most bugging question I always feel. That's the last question you need to ask. But I think the focus is around how you're going to make sure that if I spend this much, you are going to make sure that with your program, with your ability, with your teams, what you deliver, what you deploy, all of that, how much are you going to get for us? So just like how you make forecast on your P&L, you make forecast for them on what their budgets will look like. But I think that the fun in the game is when organizations are as transparent. I was part of a meeting that was very interesting for me, where the people said, listen, I've got these set of behaviors that I can never fix, and I don't think anybody will be able to fix. So they are going to travel like that. How are you going to make sure that you're going to put your systems in place that will enable that, make that better for me? You know, when you talk to us about your problems, and when Evolve Setups talk to us as about, you know, these are our 6 problem statements, get me good solutions. And if those solutions make sense for you, a marriage happens, right? A contract really takes place. So I think everyone for their own, but I'm happy that people are focusing more on technical as much as commercial. The weightages of commercial are going down, as much as that's important, but that's not the only thing. So I think a lot of change is coming there. And I'll tell you very honestly, there will be a change towards this whole thing, because as distribution cost is being lowered by airlines, revenue streams are getting lowered for earning intermediaries, which basically means the customer will have to pay a larger price for a ticket. You may have to respect a larger price for a ticket, and that change will come. The correction will auto take place in the marketplace, and we'll see how that comes through. But I can already see with NDC, with all those things coming in, your ask is going to be more on content, more on availability of data, more of research, consulting, as against a ticket price that gets charged on to you for every ticket that we service, right? TMCs are no longer banks; they're all shortening credit periods. I think the whole process of procurement will go through a change. The offerings, we've already had that process of change with us in this COVID time. But like I said, newer times, interesting thoughts will come through. We'll see how the market behaves. You and us are going to be there, so we're going to see how we're going to deal with that. But like I said, change is there definitely, and I'm hoping that a lot will come through in 2021 and 22 and the year going forward.
Thank you so much, Indivar. And I think what you were saying is change is inevitable. And looking at how travel is evolving, and with this pandemic coming in, things have changed and evolved a lot. And we foresee that, yes, travel comes back in a full bloom. Vikas sir, one more question, and the final question for the day for you is, what people want to understand is, with this GACS platform coming in, how are all the procurement professionals who will be aligned with it or who are working along with it are going to get benefit out of it? And what kind of, are we looking at some specialized training for these procurement professionals to enhance their skill sets?
Great question, Mitesh, and I think it's a question that would be there in everybody's mind. So you've got different other forums which are existing, which probably have complications. Probably you need those, for one of those, panel discussions or one-day conferences, etc. How are we different? I think the way I look at it is I think we are focused on first getting all the procurement professionals into this environment or an ecosystem which we are creating as procurement first. Some of the leaders are there on the call who are actually actively involved in terms of building the platform. And when we said that, okay, we want to create something for procurement professionals by the procurement professionals in this platform, I think we thought that we'll try and focus on 4 or 5 pillars on which we can really build competencies out here and deliver solutions or value to the people who are getting associated with this platform. So some of them which come up to my mind are learning and development. I think learning and development is a significant pillar wherein the participants or the procurement professionals can lean on this platform, really take advantage of the learning and development modules that we create over a period of time, and then deliver those solutions to the budding procurement professionals who are there. Second is around talent sourcing and recruitment. I think that we want to create something wherein we can have a large number of procurement professionals providing their details around here. Could be, some of them could be certified by this platform. People out here who could certify them on the procurement skills, and then it becomes so easy. In fact, one of the biggest challenge that I've had, welcome Payal, back. I think you're on mute, so good. So one of the biggest challenge that we essentially, I have faced challenges while hiring procurement professionals not to get a database wherein we can actually hire people who are seasoned, who are good in sourcing skills that could be hired very fast. And I think the speed of hiring is something that we tend to really deliver through this platform. Third is around certification. So we would tend to really build out procurement professionals who attend to these learning and development other things and other training programs which are there, and we possibly certify them as a certified GACS procurement professional, which could be handy for them and could be helping them in putting up their resumes to your firms where they want to probably get recruited. Other than this, of course, there will be knowledge sharing and insights which will be shared by different leaders with the field, the industry leaders, like the way we've actually invited Endeavor. We would also invite other people from the different industry who share their insight into their own areas and what do they feel about the industry and the way forward of the business. So I think that's the other insight that could be provided through the platform. And then of course, this could be, one last thing would be a sourcing hub. So intend to extend this to suppliers also who could probably come up with their services, which could be available to procurement professionals to understand who are the good suppliers, risk certified suppliers who have compliances within them, and they can be ready to use for different kind of industry needs. So I think these are the 3 or 4 things which to my mind comes to top of my mind, wherein this platform can get involved. And we are happy to really invite some of these procurement professionals who actually participate on these forums, who could actually spare some time and lead one of these verticals if they can. And we'll be happy to really invite them into this group for providing us these kind of support over there. So the answer is yes, we would certainly see action in learning and development side, talent sourcing, recruitment side, certification, knowledge sharing insights, and sourcing hub for vendors. So I think this is going to be a good interaction or a platform for vendors to come on board, and they can get reach to different procurement professional, procurement leaders of different industries, them to really showcase their service for sourcing purposes. So I hope I've been able to answer this question as we are nearing to the end of this talk show. And over to you, Payal, for wrapping this up. Great show.
Thank you so much, Vikas. I just want to say that this entire talk show is a platform where you can put your thoughts, your ideas as well, your questions, your queries, and you would surely be getting, I'm sure you would agree with me, Vikas and Endeavor, that they would surely be getting the answers for the questions that they've been searching for. and at times we get lost, because there's so much of how should I put it, there's so much of education across, or I should say thanks to social media, there's so much of opening to a lot of things in our life, that now these platforms make a lot of sense, as people would want to know the concrete answers, a concrete path to work on. And yes, social media has its own pros and cons. So people tend to get not lost, but confused. So I think it's a very great initiative that you've taken to put each and every individual from procurement industry together, so that their confusion, their thoughts can be put across and can be answered as well. So thank you, Vikas, for joining in. Thank you, Endeavors, for being a part of this first talk show. I'm so glad to be here as well. Thank you, everyone,
Thank you.
for each and every individual who's joined in. Thank you very much. But I will just say that you just have to keep on holding, because we are not going anywhere. We shall be back very soon with some new thoughts, with some new guests coming with us and sharing their experiences and their thoughts with us, and how we would be learning from them as well, how we can take this life journey and our dreams forward. So thank you, everyone, for joining in. Have a very, very pleasant evening ahead. Thank you, Vikas.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Payal.
Endeavor,
Thank you
once
for
Thank you. Thank you,
moderating
madam.
this
Thank you.
show in such a nice fashion. Thank you, Endeavor, for being there.
again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.